All righty, we are here. Thank you everyone for logging in. Holly, let's give them a couple minutes.
Yes, absolutely. So for the people that is on right now, we just want to say welcome. And like Elise said, we are going to be beginning in just a few moments. In the meantime, while everyone is getting logged on, be sure to grab pen, paper, so you can take plenty of notes. Due to compliance reasons, we cannot do any Q&As at the end. We cannot enable the chat. So you will end up having to contact us directly through, we will provide you with our emails. You can send a message through social media, or you can even just pick up the phone and call, whatever works best for you, but you will have to contact us directly.
Yep, exactly what Holly said. If a question comes up, the best thing to do is write it down and shoot us an email after the webinar. And then everything we're going to be going over today is going to be on demand for people who might need to log off early and watch it later. And then also the budget that we're going to be working on kind of in the middle of the session, that'll be emailed out to you later today. So you can work on it on your own time. All right, so it's 11:01. Holly, I say let's get started.
Get going.
All right. All righty. So before we get into our topic today, we just wanted to do a quick introduction. So those of you, I know we have some clients on here who already know us very well, but those of you who don't know me, I'm Elise Levy. I am based in Reno, Nevada, and I learned after spending many years working in the field of marketing that I wanted to find a job where I was helping people and making a real difference in their lives. So I get the pleasure of working with my dad and business partner at Legacy Wealth Planning, where I am inspired every day by our clients. I love getting the chance to help them reach their retirement goals and dreams.
I'm Holly Henry. I'm from Hatfield, Arkansas. Not only am I a financial advisor, but I also own and operate a few small businesses. So I wear a variety of work hats each day. I also have two small children, Ryan and Ace, that keep me very busy too. But as a financial advisor, I work for River Valley Wealth Management, and my goals as a financial advisor is to just educate those around me about financial investments, but also to help ensure that they're achieving their financial goals.
All righty. So today's topic, what are we talking about, Holly?
Oh, the basics of budgeting. So we're going to start off with the very, very basics of what budgeting is. And we know that budgeting can be very challenging. We are very aware that days are taken up with work, friends, family, events, and the energy of these activities required just to manage your life. So there never seems to be enough time to focus on finances. We know that. We are there with you. But don't worry, we're going to try to make this easy, and we're going to give you some things that are very easy to implement. We just need you to have a little bit of focus and some discipline in this.
Absolutely. All righty. So before we begin and hop into this, I just want to say this is really supposed to be a judgment-free zone, especially when it comes to budgeting. So I feel like automatically when you hear the word budget, people get really insecure. And I think a lot of people, before they meet with a financial advisor, think that they're going to be judged. And that is not the case with Holly and I. We are here to help you, and we're never going to judge anything involving money, the decisions you've made, your circumstances whatsoever. So it really is a fresh slate that we want to start with today.
Absolutely. And I know I've already said this once, but I'm going to say it again. We know that budgeting is difficult. This is something that before we did this webinar, Elise and I are like, we cannot speak about it unless we get our budgeting done and in order. And so we've given this like several shots and we've had several conversations. And so we get the challenges that come with it. We get the time constraints that come with it. But we also get that developing a budget, it's more than just tracking your spendings and savings. It can help you like achieve your financial goals. And the one thing that Elise and I have said over and over again for this year is it is so important for you to be more intentional with your money, which is what a budget does is it helps shines the light on where your probably being careless, or maybe I'm just speaking about myself. And I mean, I have plenty of lights being shown all over my budget of like, you could do better here. So again, you can't be intentional unless you know actually where your money is going. So
Absolutely.
these wonderful steps that are listed here, they can help you build a budget that works for your life so you can focus on pursuing your financial goals.
Alrighty. So diving in, the first step, it's a 5-step process, and the first step is just figuring out what your goals actually are. And I know it sounds really straightforward, but the biggest, most important step you can do is just writing it down. By taking that intention and putting pen to paper, you're already making a commitment that's going to start changing the way you're thinking about your money every month. And you want to make the goals specific. So what I'm talking about is a specific amount of money and a specific period of time. So if you see on the screen, the example is have $1,000 emergency fund built up by April 1st. Why we do that is because it's trackable and it's achievable. And we want everything as we move forward and create these better financial habits to be achievable so you get that feeling of reward and you keep going. So, take a couple seconds as you're sitting here watching this video and write down a couple goals for yourself and think about what you want to achieve in the next 6 months or a year. Don't go so far out in the distance. Don't say I want to have $10 million saved by 30 years from now. That's too broad. Keep it really simple. Look at the near-term future.
So this actually seems like it should be common sense, but
But it's not.
it's not, or we wouldn't be mentioning it. Before you can establish a budget, you have to know how much money you have coming in every month from like your employer or other sources of income. Um, Again, this may be hard if you're 1099 or if you're like me that's a business owner. I own short-term cabin rentals. So July is obviously going to be more money for me than January. So in the midst of budgeting, it can be difficult if the money varies every month. The one
Mhm.
thing that I will say is you can kind of go back and guess how much money you have coming in if you're 1099 or if you're a business owner. Just remember to guess on the low end of what you're expecting that month and not the high end. We don't want to overshoot this in the midst of budgeting, or that budget's going to be blown right off the bat. For those of you that are W-2 employees, be sure you're budgeting for your net pay and not your gross pay.
And Holly, for those out there that are too maybe embarrassed to ask, what is net pay and what is gross pay?
Okay. So the gross pay, for example, if you're making $20 an hour, that's the full $20. The net pay is your take home. That is once you have all your deductions and your taxes taken out. So we want to know in the budget how much money you actually have to spend, not how much money you're making.
Gotcha. So it's what after Uncle Sam takes his share, it's what you
Yes.
have after that.
Yes, absolutely. And this is just some wonderful things that you need to be looking at on your pay stub that you need to be aware of. And one thing that I just want to mention that you need to be aware of is because I don't think I've ever met anyone in HR or payroll that's absolutely perfect. You need to be checking your pay stub just to make sure that everything is accurate and there's no mistakes. So you need to know how much you're making every single pay period. You need to know, well, one, you need to know how often you're getting paid. Is this weekly, semi-monthly, monthly? However, you need to know how much is coming out for deductions. You need to make sure that if there is a retirement plan that you are contributing, you need to know how much your employer is contributing, and even deductions such as health insurance. There's so many questions that can be answered just by looking at your pay stub. And if you do not have a pay stub, you need to be tracking someone down. Sometimes it's emailed and people just forget to look
Yeah.
for it. Take the time to figure out how you can view your pay stub.
All right. So let's move on to step 3, which is totaling your monthly expenses. And I'm not going to go too into depth with this because we're going to go over it more in our budget example. But basically, this is counting up everything that you spent. And this is the one that really doesn't feel good. And like Holly said, when we started this process as financial advisors, we really wanted to practice what we preach. So we've both been keeping monthly budgets, following all the good advice that we give you guys. And I hate doing this every month. I hate adding up everything that I've spent. It's not fun. I don't like it at all, but it's a really important step because you're actually looking at what you're spending and it's going to affect how you spend moving forward. So this includes groceries, rent, mortgage if you own your home, all your debt payments, so car loan, student loans, credit card loans, cell phone service, cable, anything you think of really belongs on this list. And this will take you a while. So I always love my once a month budgeting date with myself. I try to make it as fun as possible. So I get a fancy coffee, sit outside on my patio, and I go through my budget. All right, moving on.
Okay, so again, we're going to keep this pretty basic because we're going to go over this a little bit more in our Excel.
Mhm.
But the next step is you've got to create, I've got a fly. I'm sorry if y'all see me swatting, there's a fly.
Like, I want to reiterate, we're financial advisors, not influencers.
No, and it keeps landing on my face. So I'm gonna stop. So step 4 is you have to create a realistic budget.
Yep,
So you're gonna have to know what your income is. You're gonna have to know what your expenses is, but we also want to make sure there is a line item for financial goals. And if you can do this and this come out positive, then great. You're right where you need to be. However, if this balance comes out negative, there's some more work that needs to be done, which Elise is going to explain more in step 5.
absolutely. So realistically, the first time you do a monthly budget, it is not going to be right. It is not going to be perfect. And you're going to have to rework it. So just like Holly said, if you add everything up and you're getting a negative number, it means you need to rework, revisit your goals, revisit your expenses. And that's a process, and it'll take you a few months, maybe even a year to really get your budget dialed. Because what you're looking at is what you're spending money on and what you need to prioritize. Because chances are you are going to be making some changes to how you spend your money. That's why you're making a budget. And I always want you to think of two buckets, and it's the needs versus wants. So you need a place to live. You're not going to cut down on rent expenses. Maybe, you're looking at your rent and saying, wow, this is really expensive. I could find a cheaper place to live, but probably not. It's expensive these days. You need to eat food. You need to have electricity. So those are things that we're not going to try to cut down on. We're going to prioritize those. And where you cut down on is maybe your miscellaneous spending, your subscriptions, stuff like that. So you need to kind of look at your budget every month, set your goals, and then have a time to come back and reflect and see how it was working for you. And part of this might be altering your goals. So maybe you wanted to save $5,000 in 6 months. Maybe that was a little too aggressive and you need more time to accomplish that goal. So anyways, that's a conversation you can have with Holly and I at any point, but it is a process. It's not an end result, I think is our point with this budgeting, and it's a great practice, but it's not going to be perfect the first time you do it. Holly, anything you want to throw in?
No, I think that that's the thing that we've got to just really reiterate, and we can't do it enough, is that there are going to be months to where the budget's going to be totally blown.
Yep.
It happens. I would love to say as financial advisors, we get it right every time, but unfortunately we don't. I can say like right now, I forgot to budget summer camps. Um, it happens. And again, it's so important to have that miscellaneous line item to where it can probably catch part of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the key is budgeting is just really about being intentional and knowing. And
Yeah.
sometimes there are just these expenses that come up that just can't be prevented, and that doesn't mean that you just stop. It just means we try again next month.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just that word intention is so powerful. And the more we get into the practice of knowing what we're spending, it does over time help you spend smarter. All right, so it's time to jump into our case study. Holly,
Yes, so we are going to be giving an example. So we're going to be using Jane Doe, who is 32. She makes about 110,000 a year. She has a 401k through her job. It's time for her to buy a house. Her debt includes student loans, and she also has a car payment like so many of us do. So at this point, Elise is going to be switching over to Excel for us to just kind of get an idea of what a budget would actually look like.
Yes. All right. So bear with me as I switch my screen. All righty. So now we're in Excel. Do you see it, Holly?
I do.
Awesome. It went so smoothly. I was worried about that. Okay. So a lot to talk about with this budget. And first off, this Excel spreadsheet, we're going to send it to you, but I know some people who are crazy about Excel. If it's not for you, there are a lot of great free budgeting apps up there. One that I love is NerdWallet, and the other is Pocket Guard. And my advice is if you're an apps person and you want to keep it simple, use it. But there's no need to pay for one of those really expensive paid apps. The
Mhm.
free apps do the job. Chances are your finances are not nearly complicated enough to be paying $10 a month. So do your research, but we have our recommendations and you can always ask us for it as well. But anyways, moving in. So we're looking at this month, and what I want to pull up first is our income. So our case study, Jane Doe, just like Holly mentioned, this is her gross income. So that means before taxes or anything is taken out. And then we have it divided up monthly. And then this is net after taxes. So that's her inflow for the month. So she knows what she has, and now she needs to figure out how she's going to spend it. So as we move down into the categories, you can see we have a column for projected cost, actual cost, and the difference. So that was what I was kind of talking about earlier, is you need to set a budget at the beginning of every month, and then at the end of the month, you need to go back and actually log what you spent, because that's where you're going to start figuring out the leftover money you have or the deficit you have that you need to fix. So a great way to do this, and every bank is different, but every bank has something similar. But if you log into Bank of America or Chase, you can look at your credit card statements and they will tell you exactly what you're spending in every category. And a good rule of thumb is instead of going back to the previous month, I would go back to the previous year. So if you're planning a budget for June, look at your June spending of last year. Because think about it, like Christmas time, you're going to be buying gifts. It's probably going to be a way different budget than, you know, February or March. So that's always a good rule of thumb to kind of think about what you're going to be spending that month. And you can see here, this is just an example. Everybody's is going to be different, but we have housing, we have retirement. And for this example, we're trying to figure out how much our Jane Doe person can be putting into her house fund every month. That's like the question we're trying to answer, while still doing her 401k contributions, still receiving that match, and still making payments on her debt. So that's really what she's trying to figure out. So under here we have food, personal care. I know, as Holly said, she really believes you need to have a miscellaneous because stuff comes up. And I think like the biggest thing with this conversation is we're not asking you to cut out things that are important to you. And everybody's different. Like for me, I have a whole category just for my dog because he goes to the groomer every 3 weeks and he has expensive food and he needs a category all to himself. So everybody's budget's going to look differently. One thing I want to pull up, which we try not to harp on too much, but subscriptions. It is a money suck.
Mhm.
So what I do is I just go through and see everything that I'm paying for monthly. And when you see it written down, it just helps you think about it a little bit. Because if you look at your list and you're like, okay, I use every single one of those at least once a week, great, you're getting your money's worth. But if there's one that you haven't used in 3 months, get rid of it. Holly, can you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was the biggest area for me. I had actually canceled my DirecTV because I felt like it had gotten too expensive, but I had downloaded so many of like the um like Peacock and like the individual
Mhm.
apps that by the time that I added it all up, or Hulu and Netflix, that it was almost about the same cost. And at the end of the day, I probably watch TV once a week. I really just, especially during summertime, I don't
Oh
have time.
yeah.
And so I went through, I canceled a lot of those. I canceled a gym membership because I was like, this is ridiculous. I don't even like the gym once I see how much I'm paying for it. Um, you just forget because it automatically comes out of your account.
Yep.
So this is why I felt like it was key. And not to backtrack on what Elise has said, but something that I made a note of. When we're talking financial goals, don't always think it has to be something like save an X amount for retirement or save X
Mhm.
for an emergency fund. Sometimes financial goals can be something as fun as we're going to put $100 back a month for a vacation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or if you're planning for a wedding, if you're planning for a house, or even just saying something as simple as like, we've got to put so much back a month for Christmas. We
Yeah.
don't want to have to dip into any type of savings account for that. So financial goals can be an entire array of things. Don't just limit it to something that's like retirement or emergency fund.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for saying that. It is much more broad than we were mentioning earlier. Okay, so back to the budget. So at the very bottom here, you're going to see your projected monthly income. So that's that number we got from the very top of the sheet. And then your projected monthly cost. So for our Jane Doe, she has about $1,000 hypothetically left over to put into that house fund for the month. But what she needs to do in the next step is to do an actual budget. So, what she actually made. So, like we said, we always want to err on the side of lower with her income. So, hopefully, she makes a little more than that. And then her actual monthly cost and that difference. And why we're doing that is we're trying to get those numbers to basically be exactly the same. You want to be projecting pretty accurately so you know exactly what you're going to have left over every month and know that you can put it towards your goals. And this is just one specific example for wanting to save for a house. But if you have a specific goal that you're trying to achieve and you need help working through that budget, schedule a meeting with Holly or I. It's what we do, and we can tailor it to really fit your goal and work through it with you. Have a monthly check in if you need that accountability and meeting with another person. So now I want to hop over, and as we talk about monthly budgets, a great other tool to do is keeping track of your net worth. Why we do that, it's just nice to know how much you're worth, and it's a motivator. It's not going to deter you from your goals. So it's the simplest equation in the world. Assets minus liabilities equals your net worth. So assets, that includes your retirement accounts, any you have, including your current one, any savings you have, any money in your checking account. She has a high yield savings account, which we love, and the worth of her car. And then, like, if you had a house, you would put house, any other property, anything like that. And then under liabilities, she has her remaining car loan and remaining student loan. So her net worth as of today is $109,000. So that's just a good thing to check in on. I think, like with net worth and subscriptions, I think that's like a twice a year thing. I always like to do subscription check-in in January, and then like midsummer is always a great time too, where your monthly budget, you're really going to be checking in on it every month. Because you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to be so in your finances that it causes you stress. All of this is aimed to relieve stress, not add stress.
Absolutely. And again, I think it's just so enlightening when we write down all of our liabilities, all of our monthly payments that we may have that we just kind of like in this area, for example, and we've spoke about this during the
Mhm.
summertime. Most people have their campers, they have their side by sides. You can accumulate so many of like these toys and these monthly payments that you forget how much is even going towards it until you sit down and you make a list of all your monthly liability payments.
Absolutely. And I think that's just like, it's how it gets you. It sneaks up on you. All right, so let's hop back into our PowerPoint and continue on because we have a couple more topics to go over. All righty. So,
Okay, so when it comes to developing a budget, the main thing we want to just reiterate is there's just some simple things to help build momentum. Because again, we see people and we've done it ourselves. We just get discouraged, and sometimes you just want to throw your hands up and say, I quit, especially when you're getting to middle of the month and expenses have come up that you just didn't expect. So we're going to talk about a few easy ways so you can get moving on your budget and just gain some confidence right off the bat.
absolutely. Because, like most people we talk to, finance equals anxiety. And we're trying to fix that and decrease your anxiety around money. That's really our ultimate goal, I think.
Yes.
All right. So, first one, and I think we talk about this on social media so often, I'm sure people are sick of it, but it is build your emergency fund. If you are a new client and you walk in the door, the first question I'm going to ask is, do you have an emergency fund? And if the answer is no, that is what we're building first because you need it, because life happens. I think in terms of how much to have in your emergency fund, it's very much on an individual basis. The rule of thumb in our industry is 3 to 6 months of living expenses, but I think you can be as conservative as you want with it. So if you say, I really want to have a year's worth of my mortgage in my emergency fund, just in case me or my spouse lose a job, that's totally fine. It's okay to be a little bit more conservative and hold a little bit more cash. But this is supposed to be separate from your checking account. And it's still very easy to access. If you need the money, it's right there. But it is something to really use when things happen, when life happens. It's not for vacations, it's not for planned expenses, it's for the unplanned things. The washer dryer went out, we need a new one. The car got a flat tire, now I have to get all new tires. It's stuff that just we know happens, but we can't plan for it. So just to really highlight the importance of this and how many people are lacking an emergency fund, I think when you look at these numbers, so who has 6 months of living expenses? 25% of the population. But look down to who has fewer than 3 months covered, 51% of our population. That's pretty crazy that people are living paycheck to paycheck because we know it happens because emergencies still happen to these people and they go on the credit card. That's going to be a big topic coming up is the danger of credit card debt. And like Holly and I love credit cards. We both use them. We both tell our clients to use them, but it is no joke. And you don't want to be using that as instead of an emergency fund. All right, so let's move on. Holly, what is the second step to move forward?
Yeah, so again, once you build your emergency fund, and I do appreciate that, Lisa, that's going to be the first question that we ask you.
Yep.
And one thing that we will also say is don't ever invest your emergency fund into the stock market, which is a lot of people want to do that because they want to get ahead.
Yeah.
But that stock market, it goes up and down, and maybe the day you need it is when the market's down. So now you're losing money.
Yeah.
So Elise and I will then probably tell you, let's look at a high yield savings account or something else instead of throwing it into the market, which is again why you need a financial advisor to kind of guide you through this. So once an emergency fund is built up, you have got to start budgeting, making some sort of contributions to your retirement account, whether it's a plan through your employer or if it's an individual retirement account, which you'll hear us say IRA or IRA. That's just what we call it. I would definitely recommend doing an automatic payroll deduction. Obviously, that's what's going to happen if you're in an employer retirement plan. But if you are going into an individual retirement plan, go ahead and have that automatically sent in. If you are 1099 or if you're a business owner, chances are an IRA is going to be one of the options for you. And this is something where you're going to want to talk to Elise and I about. If you don't have access to an employer retirement plan, and this is something that you're interested in, you need to reach out and we talk to you about what the best options are, especially for business owners, because there's plenty of options surrounding that. And again, it's so, so important you need to pay yourself first. So many people that we meet with, they are so concerned about making their monthly payments or just getting out of debt that they don't even prioritize retirement until it's too late. And just remember, any little bit helps. It's not like we're coming to you saying you need to put in $200 a month or $500 a month. Even, we have people that start off with a $0 balance and
Yep.
they do $25 a month starting off because they've got to just start somewhere. And again, if you're just $50, what anymore? $50 is like a meal at a restaurant.
Yeah.
And so if you can skip one meal and just do $50 a month to just get the ball going until you're at a better place, I mean, you have, again, I just cannot say it enough. You've got to plan for retirement.
Yeah, and I think like, I'm guilty of this too. If I see money in my account, I want to spend it.
Mhm.
So the best way to do that is to just take it out. And so if you don't see it, you're not going to spend it. So that's like those monthly contributions are so awesome in that way because it just allows you to put it on cruise control. You don't have to think about it. You know you're contributing and you're not going to be able to touch that money. And also exactly what Holly said, like we have a lot of clients who start small and work their way up. So we always say it's like pick a monthly amount that you can do, that you're not going to backtrack on, that you can stay consistent. And then once you get that, we can add to it, we can increase it because we don't want you to be discouraged at any point. So like start with 25, start with 100, whatever that number is that feels really good, and then we can build from there. And you'll be amazed that monthly contribution, consistently contributing, has such a powerful effect when it comes to saving for retirement and investing in the stock market. All righty, so let's move on to the third one. And I love this list because, like Holly and I have been saying, intention, intention, intention. So we're not asking you to stop drinking Starbucks every day. If that is what you love to do it. But maybe that means you need to be more frugal in other parts of your budget. And the truth is just by kind of thinking a little bit more about how you're spending your money, you can make a lot of better choices. The first one, which I know is so random, it sounds random, but buying generic brands, buying store brands saves so much money on your grocery list. It's crazy. Holly and I were talking about this when we did the run through, but like I buy Advil liquid gels like crazy. And I looked at the store brand versus the Advil brand, and it was over a $15 difference for the same amount. So it's big differences. We're not talking about a couple of cents here. It's real dollar differences when you just buy the same exact product. Uh,
Yeah. And I
yeah,
think,
Holly, hop in.
yeah, yeah, I think we even talked about like the ketchup. I tried name brand versus generic. And I couldn't tell a difference. And again, now there's not going to be the huge difference, probably a couple dollars, but but even like I was really fussing, I think, about the Dr. Peppers.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's like Mountain Thunder is the off-brand.
Dr. Thunder,
Dr.
I
Thunder.
think it's Mountain Lightning or something. But like my kids, and I don't let them have a lot of Cokes, but every now and then, we're gonna have a family get together, and I went to go buy Cokes today, and I was like, wait a minute, this has now went like extremely expensive. So I'm like, no, Dr. Thunder, it's gonna be for these kids.
Yeah, and so I think it's just like that idea of putting a little bit more thought in behind your spending, writing out your grocery list, simple things like that, but they do make a big impact. So another one, always using native ATMs, so using your Bank of America ATM versus an out-of-network. One I love, and I'm going to throw this in for Nevada, so buying lottery tickets is always like a thing here, but we also have gambling here. And so if you took the money that you were doing maybe 50 bucks at the casino, put that into a retirement account, way better. Because gambling is not investing. And that's a whole nother topic we can get into, but we won't today. Another one is buying too many apps or buying apps that have a lot of in-app purchases. I think Holly knows this one very well, thanks to her kids.
Yeah, so my kids decide, and I've had to put restrictions on their iPads because they didn't realize that some of these like in-app purchases, I mean, it was 50, $75. And I wouldn't know it until a month, and I wouldn't know it until the credit card bill came in. So definitely like be aware of these in-app purchases that kids can make.
Absolutely. And then I think the last two are so accurate because I'm not going to go out and go to a store and shop, but I do love online shopping. And a great thing that I've started doing and telling other people to do is if you're looking at something online, just wait a week. If you
Mhm.
still want it after that week, great, buy it. But otherwise, you probably don't want it. And it's just that you're bored at work and you're scrolling through your computer and you don't need another top. You don't need another bathing suit. You probably have enough as it is. But maybe you do. So just put a little more thought behind it. And I do want to really highlight this last one, Afterpay. I know a lot of like the clothing websites and stuff that I'm on offer Afterpay. So it's like no interest, you pay for payments. But exactly what Holly said, it's like those payments catch up so quick. And then you're paying for it every month and you've lost track of how you've originally even spent the money. And it's just not a good way to go. So paying as you go, knowing what you're spending, very important. Holly, want to add anything?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the biggest things that I've done is I've unfollowed a lot of these shopping influencers. One of my favorite pages is Lilac and Lily, and I've had to just unfollow her unless I'm looking for something because she posts all the great Amazon outfits that are on sale. And
Hmm.
before I even knew what I'm doing, she would post something, I'd be like, that's such a great deal and it's a cute top. And then I was doing this way too often. I wasn't even keeping up with it. So before I know it, I'm paying way more in clothes than what I would have if I just went to the store and bought something at full price. So just trying to eliminate sometimes the temptation, especially that social media provides,
Oh, yeah.
it goes a long way. And with that being said, Elise and I have had this conversation several times. During the summer, social media can be very tempting for spending. The vacations, the days on the lake. If any of that triggers spending for you, just cut it.
Yeah,
It
easier said than done, but yeah.
yes, exactly. So, just try and be aware of what causes you to just overspend.
Yeah, 100%. Alrighty, let's move forward. So now we're getting into just a little bit of the debt iceberg. So Holly, kick us off.
Okay, so I just want to start out with a very simple but true statement. It's almost impossible not to have some kind of debt during your lifetime, especially right now when everything is like so stinking expensive. Many folks probably have a credit card that carries some sort of balance month to month. We have several clients that are carrying a couple cards or more with balances, and especially car loans. And I'm one right now that's shopping for a vehicle, and vehicles are just super expensive. And so chances are there's a vehicle loan. And then there's also tens of thousands of Americans that have debt from college. Um, so so this is why we're going into this. As stressful as what debt can be, they can also be a financial tool. So Elise, can you start us off on a few key things about whether or not you should take on some debt?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, I think what you were saying is, it's like in our day and age, debt is kind of unavoidable.
Mhm.
So knowing how much debt you can really afford is a great first step before you get into something. So exactly what we said on your budget, knowing how much of your disposable income you have every month that you could be paying. So like if you're thinking about a car loan, before you even go to look at a car, knowing like, okay, I can really afford $200 to $400 a month, and then basing your car search off of that. That's going to help you in the long run for sure. But let's talk about, because there is such a thing as good debt and bad debt, let's talk about the differences.
Yeah, so again, bad debt, it's going to be high in interest. It's going to be something that doesn't retain its value. And it may be even something that you don't even really need. And we immediately thought of like the trendy cell phones, because of course, every time Apple releases a new iPhone, people rush out to get it. And of course, they give you like a payment plan for this.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, chances are the phone you had probably was working sufficiently for what you need it for. And again, this is just bringing awareness to your spending. Um, Good debt. This is debt that carries a low interest. It is probably chances are something that appreciates in value. And one of the examples that we immediately thought of is like a home.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I think like, a big discussion nowadays is with interest rates is like, is it a good time to buy a home? Well, if you're not a homeowner, this might be a good time to buy a home. If you already have a home and you're sitting on a 3% mortgage loan, probably not a great time to upgrade unless you can do all cash for it. So those are all really good conversations to have with Holly and I. And I think like this whole PowerPoint is just like really good conversation topics to have with your financial advisor, because every situation is different. But it is good to talk about these things and talk them out and really think about them, because if you're just going off of what you see on TikTok or
Yeah.
Yahoo Finance or whatever, you're going to get a very generic answer that's not specific for you. So just wanted to throw that in there as we're moving on. Okay, so next topic, and I think this is almost our last thing we're going to cover today, but it's so important: credit cards.
Yeah, so this is probably one of the things that we talk about so much with our clients because it's now becoming so common that people are in some sort of credit card debt.
Mhm.
Almost everyone struggles with it at one time or the other. Let me be very clear. Elise and I are not against credit cards.
Mhm.
I love credit cards and they are a great financial tool when used properly. And there is that when used
That
properly.
big asterisk.
Yes, yes. Please do not get a credit card so you can earn rewards and then not pay it off.
Yep.
Because um the APR right now is what, 24, 27%, something like that
Yeah.
on most credit
Yeah, I
cards.
think it's 28 right now.
Oh, okay. So if you get a credit card, you've got to try and pay it off immediately. And if you don't, I mean, it's going to get you in trouble just right away. So,
Yeah.
Elise, do you want to kick us off on how to best manage credit card debt?
Well, I think just before we hop in, I think we should explain. So when you say the APR is 28%, what does that mean to a person that has credit card debt?
It means you're going to be paying 28% on top of what you owe.
Extra.
Extra.
Yeah.
And late fees.
Yeah.
And so,
So let that sink in.
yeah, yes. And I will also say that the majority of the clients that we meet with and they have credit card debt, when we go over like, what is this debt for? It's vacations, it's clothes. It's not necessarily what's needed to make ends meet. Because again, everything's expensive. If this is for groceries right now, girl, we get you. Like groceries are expensive. And I have two kids at home right now on summer vacation. And they're like, I get it. I get it. But let's just make sure let's try not to put anything on there. Let's just try and pay for it. But again, if you're gonna have to carry a balance, let's not do it on things like clothes or
Yeah.
things that's not needed.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to our conversation on emergency funds. It's like, if you have that built up emergency fund and you have a really expensive month, you can turn to that instead of having to rack up your credit card debt. So that's why it's so important. Okay, moving on, avoiding bad habits. So exactly what we just said, using your card to make ends meet. Owning more than two cards at a time. You really don't need more than that. If you have 5 or 6 credit cards, you need to get rid of some of them, because chances are you're losing money on fees, you're losing money on forgetting to pay balances. It's just too much to keep track of. Why would you want to add that much complicated mess to your life? Also, not researching other options before applying. I think a lot of people just go with like what they hear on ad or see online. Do your research. There's going to be different options that are right for you. Exceeding 25% of your credit line, that can actually affect your credit score if you did not know that. And then using rewards programs as an excuse to buy more stuff. Yeah, don't do it. And then when you make large purchases on your credit card, do so knowing you already have the money set aside to pay it off. Because It is. It's a like Holly said, I use my credit card for every single purchase, but I know that I have cash sitting aside waiting to pay off the balance right away. And I think like our rule of thumb is pay it off twice a month so that
Mhm.
it breaks it up a little bit. Or a great thing is like whatever your pay schedule, incorporate that into your credit card schedule. So if you're like a bi-weekly pay schedule, pay it bi-weekly. Don't wait till the end of the month because then you'll have this big amount and it'll feel really scary. But break it up a couple times throughout the month and it'll feel a lot more doable.
Mhm.
Okay, moving on. So developing good habits.
Okay. So again, I love credit cards when used properly. Some ways to just make sure we're using them properly is you need to review the statements every single month. And it's not just so you can track your spending, but I would also just say for fraudulent reasons. I know in my business credit card statements, I've had people charge the card and it's went through. I don't feel like business credit cards are monitored as well as what personal is.
Mm.
And so just make sure that you're actually making these purchases. We've already said this several times. Please pay your bill. You're going to get hit with late fees. You're going to get hit with high interest. And it's like you can see something and say, I'm going to put it on this credit card and pay it off in a couple months. It may be almost double that by the time you have late fees and interest. Always be sure to just be very cautious if you're going to be carrying a balance. Um, and again, this is something that we just go over this with our clients and try and come up with a good plan for them if they're in debt with credit cards on how to best get out of it. Um, if you're tempted to just really go out and spend, have your credit limit reduced, especially if you are a young person and this is your first credit card. We don't want you to get in trouble because once you're in trouble, it is really hard to get out of it. And then again, take advantage of the rewards program. This is something I'm a huge fan of. I just made a post earlier in the year that I paid for mine and my kids' spring break vacation to Mexico with the points. But again, as I'm going to always reiterate, like don't just put things on the credit card and let the balance carry just for the points.
Yeah, like maybe have that money saved and then use the credit card.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So let's say hypothetically you are in debt, how to pay it off. So there are really two schools of thought on paying off debt. You'll hear it everywhere. One is the snowball and one is the avalanche. So the snowball is very simple. You're going to pay off your lowest amount first. So let's say you have $1,000 in credit card debt, you have 6,000 left on a car payment, and you have 80,000 in school debt. You're going to go after that small $1,000 amount first and tackle that. So why go about it this way? This is much more based on, I think, human nature. If we get one thing done, we feel accomplished and we're going to keep going. So it builds momentum and builds positive feelings around paying off debt. The other one, avalanche, it's not that different, but instead of going after the smallest amount, you're going to go after the highest interest rate first. I think logically in our brains, this one makes the most sense, but it might not be right for you if you're not going to be motivated to do it. So you're going to pay off less interest over time and pay down debt overall faster, but you're going to have to be really motivated and stick with it. But the really important thing I want to reiterate is just because you're paying off debt, don't stop contributing to your retirement. And I think that's a great conversation to have with Holly and I because we can look at those numbers with you. And I think the biggest one that comes to mind when I think of this conversation is student loan debt. A lot of our younger clients, even clients in their 40s and 50s, still have student debt. And they're trying to do the juggle of how much should I be paying off in student debt while still contributing to my retirement? Because you really want to do both. You don't want to just put your retirement on hold because you're dealing with debt. It needs to be a balance. Holly, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, it's so important to start retirement planning as early as you can just because of compounding the interest. We always talk about that's the secret sauce. And it's not uncommon to see people focus all their money into debt and then their late 40s and 50s and retirements upon them. And then it makes that 100 times harder to set the money aside. I don't want to say it's too late. It's never too late. It just a little bit of money in your 20s and your 30s can go a long, long way. And and again, we've said this several times, have the conversation with us so we can just guide you through what's the best to make in retirement planning and paying off debt.
Yeah. And I think even if it's like less, maybe you're doing 6% of your income to pay off those student loans, and you can really only do 3% of your income into retirement, that's still better than nothing.
Yes.
And we really can't reiterate that enough, because the more time on your hands, the more potential for that money to grow. And you'll have a lot less work to do later on when it comes to saving for retirement. All right, so that's kind of it. So let's go into how we can help people.
Yes. So we are here to help. However, and at least if you just want to go to the next slide, because it has kind of what we're here for and what we offer. So we just want to say that as your advisor, we just want to be your personal CFO. We want
Hmm.
to talk to you about your financial goals, your budget struggles, or anything else pertaining to the finances with you. We give you guidance and advice on budgeting, debt management, and other key financial goals. We are very one-on-one that focuses on your unique needs, because let's face it, none of us are the same. If you're interested, we educate you on the different types of investments. There are some clients who are like, nope, we're out. We don't care. You do that. We also help determine like what your risk tolerance is on investing, which is just a very important conversation too. And then we just want to help match your financial goals with the right investments. Like that's just a little bit of what we do as a financial advisor. And the first thing we would say is you just need to set up a discovery meeting, which this is just a 1 hour meeting with Elise and I. There's no cost, no commitments. We can do this virtual, we can do this in person, we can do this on the phone. And basically, this is the conversation that even if you're calling asking just some budget questions, take advantage of this 1 hour meeting. Like, again, there's no commitments. Or if you have questions about, okay, I am a 1099 employee, or my job does not offer a retirement plan and I've got to start somewhere,
Hmm.
make the call, or send the we have compliance texting numbers. Shoot us a message on social media. We make it very, very easy to contact us, and we will just guide you through the rest. You can look at everything else that comes up with us, but at the main thing that I have to say is you have to take that first step, which is the hardest, that says that I need help in budgeting and setting up some sort of plan for retirement.
Absolutely. And like, do it for yourself. Give yourself this opportunity to improve. And I kind of like that idea. It's like you're doing this for your future self, you're setting them up for success. And don't let all the hard work you're doing now go to waste. Okay. So, and then once you become a client, and we're talking about these budgeting, we're talking about tools, we're talking about savings. Um, our company, LPL Financial, our partner, has so many great resources. So we can do client goals, which is like a really simple version of a financial plan. So instead of this like 60-page document, we just have these really great little graphics, and then you can monitor them on your online portal as you go through and achieve your goals. So that's a great little tool that kind of fits into our conversation today that I wanted to highlight. And then I think we should probably tell people how to get in contact with us, Holly.
Yeah, so
Because
here's our
it's so hard. It really isn't.
exactly. So here is our contact page. Also, I just want to say we are very active on social media. We both have like the Instagrams, the Facebook pages. We love hearing from people, whether they're prospects or clients. You can email us. You can hit us up through social media, and then our texting numbers are here. One thing that I will say is we are very available to our clients, and we try to respond just as quickly as we can. And so again, the hardest thing I would say is just making the initial appointment. And I know it's summer, and there's so many people that are like, we're gonna put this off. And I just think when you put it off, it's out of sight, out of mind, back on the shelf again. Like what Elise said, like your future self is going to thank you. So just take the step to just contact one of us.
Yeah, and I think like summer is usually a slow season for most industries. So take off a little bit early one day and come meet with us and get started. Don't wait till the new year. Don't wait till 2025. get started now. And another thing, oops, I went too far. So we launched this year, and we're so proud of it, is our Let's Talk Money Honey newsletter and podcast. This all started as a webinar series, and we just realized, if you haven't noticed, Holly and I can talk a lot. But we realized there's so much to say, and as we get these new clients, women in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, we realize that there is a lack of information out there for women specifically, and it is not readily available. So that's why we've created this monthly newsletter. It is geared directly towards women looking to raise their awareness on their finances and grow their net worth and really provide a great little nest egg for their future self. So it costs nothing. It's absolutely free. Like I said, it's once a month. You won't get bombarded by us, and all you need is your email. And we also have a great YouTube channel that has all of our videos on specific topics. Really great information. I can't say that enough. And I think, like, if you're a current client or you're already on our newsletter list, send it to other women you know, because this is a real thing. Women need to be exposed to this at a young age. They need to be informed, and you need to get on gear with your finances because you need to. There's no excuse. And the wage gap is real, the investing gap is real, and we're trying to close it. So take it seriously and take full advantage of these free resources we offer. All right, so closing it out, we just want to say thank you so much for listening. This was actually a pretty long webinar. We had a lot to say.
Yes, we did.
These are our disclosures, but seriously, keep an eye on your email. We'll send you all of the follow-up documents today and the webinar link for the replay if you missed some of it. And just thank you so much, and stay tuned. We're going to have more webinars this year, and we just love doing this, and we love providing information to our community. Holly, any last words?
No, I just want to say thank you again, and we are looking forward to hopefully having contact with all of you. And if there's a special topic that we haven't talked about, be sure and contact us and let us know that there's something that you're wanting to hear from us, because sometimes we don't exactly know which direction to go. So we would appreciate any feedback that you have.
Absolutely. Yeah. And reach out, ask your questions, schedule your meetings. We'd love to hear from you. All right. Thanks so much.